Hello everybody. Thank you for coming along. I'm a little bit late today because, again, I was just having a little bit of a delay with the computer and a bit of funny sort of choppiness in the video. So, if you are watching along, let me know how the video is going. I can see a comment from Maggie Mac on YouTube. Says, hi Darren and everyone, hope you're all well. Melbourne's been warm and getting warmer again. And yeah, it's over the last few days it's been getting quite warm actually. So yeah, I think it's a nice little change, but I hope it doesn't hope it goes down a little bit. I actually prefer it being cooler. So yeah, looks like Catherine Thorne says looks good. Okay, fantastic. That's the main thing because it's strange on my end. It looks a little bit laggy, and I think it probably just is my computer trying to do too many things at the same time and getting unhappy with me. So as long as it looks good from your end, that's the important thing. So now, just to let you know a few sort of things before we get started, there are some references available, which I've put in the discussion section of this event. So I will link it on Facebook, but on YouTube, if you're on YouTube, just pop into the community section on the channel. And it is uploaded there, so you'll be able to see it there as well. It's a bit tricky to navigate to it, but that's the way I've sort of been doing things so far. So try to get the reference picture up on one side of your screen and have the video playing on the other side of the screen. I find that is the best combination so that you can have a better look at the reference while you're actually doing the watching the demonstration with me. So. But I will paste this little discussion section in the, where is it? I'll just paste that there. So if you guys are looking for the reference, it is there. But yeah, I think for most of you come along, you know the sort of drill. Sarah Hendrickson, says sounds and looks good. Okay, fantastic. So we got. Looks like we've got a couple of thumbs up. That's more than enough, in my opinion. Now, this is going to be probably a bit more of a smaller group because on Wednesdays, most of the audience, most of my viewers, off in the States, are either sleeping or, probably sleeping and what have you. So I think it's a lot of... probably a lot of Aussies here, a lot of us Aussies, and maybe people from other parts of the world where it's a reasonable hour to be up. But thank you all for coming along. For those of you who haven't been here before, my name's Darren Eo. I'm an artist from Melbourne, and I run a bunch of these workshops every week to show you how to paint. I go through my entire process. I talk about a whole bunch of things, including portraiture. I talk and demonstrate landscapes as well. So how to go through and sketch and paint a landscape from scratch. I also go through line and wash demonstrations, quite a few of those available in the previous streams. So I'll show you a few bits of my work and then we will get started, and I'll let you guys all get ready. If you're new here, leave a comment and let me know where you're watching from, and perhaps just a little bit about you as well. What your current level of painting is and what you're looking to improve or work on. And we've got apologies if I'm pronouncing your name wrong, but Martin Strömberg from Sweden. There's a country we haven't really heard of too often here. So welcome and great to have you here. Thanks for joining. Steffson is also here. Nice to see you. Sarah Hendrickson says New Jersey. Awesome. Now, I'll just bring up the stream. So the camera should readjust and things like that for all the you know, as I start painting. So it does look a little bit dim when I bring it over to the white of the paper, but after, you know, through the stream, the camera will adjust and will change so that it will just become brighter over time. So hopefully that works out. Here are a couple of portraits that I did recently. This one I did for a last demonstration. This one I've done for a class that I'll be putting out later. Same with these two, couple of portraits I did for a recorded class. These are a little bit more what you call it, they're quicker portraits, and they're a lot fresher as well compared to the usual sort of work that I do, where I sort of spend a little bit more time trying to get in all the details and what have you. So I hope the camera's okay. It looks, again, it just looks slightly dim on my side of the on my side, but if it looks right for you, I'm going to continue. I think it's just confused that I've got too many things up here. So there we go. That's another one, another sort of scene that I did. This is a oh yeah, that was one from a previous demonstration as well that you can go back and have a look at. The paper that I'm using is 100% hot press paper, 100% cotton hot press paper, so it's very very smooth, and it can be tricky to paint on this paper, but very rewarding when you get it right, because you can get really sort of sharp edges and a lot more detail in it. Do get a bit of this funny cauliflower, and it doesn't mix as well, I find, on paper. It tends to form more cauliflowers and is less forgiving, but it's a good challenging paper to practice on. So all these are done on hot press paper, in case you're wondering. Now I've done a couple of cold press papering. So this is hot press. Cold press is like this here. So I did this for one of my last demonstrations. I was actually quite pleased with this one, so I thought I'd show you guys, in case you're new here, what to expect. If you have questions as well, just let me know. Drop a question in the chat and I'll get back to you during the stream. I'll be able to do it probably a lot better for this one as well, seeing that there's less people in the chat, so I'll be able to respond to all of you. Pom Pom says, good morning, here for the first time, and come from the Netherlands. Well, welcome. And thank you for joining, Pom. Catherine Thorne says, I'm in Melbourne. I've mainly painted in acrylics, just started to explore watercolors. Well, if you've started with acrylics already, or if you've played around with any other medium, even if it's like colored pencils or just pencils, then you're off to a really good start, because watercolors, you know, it still has those same principles of, you know, tone and color, but you're just practicing different techniques to apply that detail on. So that's the last demonstration that I did of my grandmother. During the demonstration, I didn't realize at the time, but the left side of her face was a little bit too light. So I actually went back into it later, sprayed it down with some water, and then went back over and redid this shadow. And if you spray the paper with a bit of water, that's how you get in a softer shadow. Let's have a look here. We've got a few more chats. So Steph says she's from Oregon, Portland. Awesome. So I pretend to know where like a lot of these places are in the States, but I don't really know. Like, I've heard of the names, but if you ask me to sort of point it out on a map, I'd have no idea. I hope to visit someday though. Jill Masters is from Northampton, UK. Fantastic, Jill. Okay. Guys, got Neil here as well, and Neil Moorhead, and I think, oh yeah, you're from Queensland. You're an Aussie. I wasn't sure whether you're from Melbourne or not, though. So Neil says, hi, Darren, everyone else on YouTube. Please send some of the cooler weather up here to Queensland, as it's quite humid. It's pretty warm actually down here, Neil. So I don't think you're gonna be you're not gonna be too jealous, that's for sure. But yeah, I'm hoping for it to start cooling down soon as well. We get those weird days. I haven't done landscapes for some time, but here's some of my landscapes work that I thought I'd pick out. A lot more looser, and I actually have quite a lot of fun painting these. So without worrying too much about the details of everything, just so yes, I just thought I'd show you a little bit of what I do, so you can know kind of what to expect here. So I'm assuming that we all have our reference pictures transferred over. There's a few ways that you can transfer it over. You can draw, you can trace, or you can use the gridding method. I use the gridding method a lot these days. It saves me a heck of a lot of time and allows me to just get in a more accurate reference photo. I run these fairly often, and I also make other classes in the background. So any time that I can save, you know, I'll definitely take that. But if you're learning portraiture, it's also really important, I mean, just in general as an artist, to be able to draw. So make sure that you do practice your drawing techniques as well. On this Saturday or Friday or Saturday, depending on where you are, I'm going to actually be running a little quick watercolor portrait sketching class. So it's going to be a bit easier for you to follow along. We're going to do some really quick portraits. It's going to be fun, no pressure. I think you know, with portraiture, people tend to get freaked out about it because you know, the reference is just you know, trying to get it to look like that person is very tricky. So we're going to make it a little bit more fun. So yeah, so something different. I'm just having a look at the chats. We've got Cynthia here. Cynthia from Sydney says, "I find watercolor intimidating, especially light and shade." Yeah, it can be very, very tricky and at times unforgiving watercolors, but when you get it right, when you get the process down packed, and I use almost a two-step process in all of my paintings, it makes it a lot easier. Sometimes less is more. Well, not sometimes, I reckon a lot of times less is more with watercolors. When you talk about, you know, acrylics and oils and stuff like that, those are mediums that are more suited to you know, being reworked and painting on top of other colors, that kind of thing. But I think watercolors can take a few washes before it starts becoming looking a little overworked. So do recommend you to try to paint a watercolor in as few layers as possible. Solitary is here from New Delhi. Really enjoy your live workshops. Manisha from New Delhi, thank you, and good to have you here. Jocelyn Steves as well. Okay, guys, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I've been talking for a little bit now, and I'm going to show you a couple of brushes that I use. So these two brushes here are just mop brushes. Okay, now I'd go through quite a similar sort of thing in the last workshop as well, but you want to use a brush that's small enough to be able to cut around details such as the eyes and get in small details like the nose and stuff like that. But you also want it to have basically enough of a belly to pick up a good amount of paint. So using something like this to paint the face, it's not going to work at all. This little round brush is not going to hold much paint. It's a synthetic brush. And even if you're using a synthetic brush, you use one that's larger that will be able to hold more paint. I don't really have an example here. Perhaps something like this in a round shape as well might be better. I did used to paint a lot in flat brushes. Now I've swapped to round brushes. So I'm going to be using perhaps these two to start with, and we'll leave this one for later in the background. It's still a little bit too big. I think like using this one in the middle is just going to, you know, be a nice trade-off between having a nice mix and at the same time so being able to cut around and be able to pick up a lot of paint. And what am I doing here? I've got a bit of something stuck on my palette. I'll just take that off. And I am pretty bad at cleaning my palette, but actually today it's looking a lot better. So what we want to do to start off with is we want to pick up, we want to match the color of the face. Okay, so the tones in the face, the tones, and also the color, so the actual hues with what we're doing with the subject. So sort of bring up the reference picture, zoom straight into the reference. I'm going to bring that up on the side of the screen so I can have a look. I'm telling you guys to bring it up, but I haven't even got mine up. So there we go on the side there. I'm just rearranging everything. I've got so many windows open because usually I run two computers, but on Wednesdays I'm a bit slack here, so I just have one up. And now it's interesting because she's kind of got a combination of maybe, I feel like she's got a bit of a reddish undertone, but at the same time she's got some kind of tan on that's making it look a bit more a teeny bit more brown as well. So For the face, I think I'm going to actually go in with a combination of yellow ochre. I tend to use these two colors very often, yellow ochre and a bit of 𝗬𝗙𝗡𝗏 scarlet, 𝗬𝗙𝗡𝗏 red, or you might have a permanent red, crimson or rose. Those colors are completely fine. Some reds are just a little bit cooler than others, so you just got to be mindful of that. But I'm trying to mix up probably a 50-50 mix of this. Okay, so a bit of red, a bit of yellow, and also trying to keep it fairly light as well. I don't want it to be too thick, this paint, because area of the face is going to be probably it's the lightest part of the entire portrait, so we have to preserve it. Okay, so just got to preserve that light on there. A bit more yellow. Just having a look in here. Okay, and I'm just going to drop that in here. Let's have a look how that sits. I think that's almost like a bit too red. I'm going to drop in a little bit of titanium white and a bit more yellow in there. Something like that. Let's have a look. Maybe a little bit more yellow. Sometimes it's not so apparent until you actually apply it on the page. Okay, so I'm just going to go around. I'm going to just color pretty much the entire area of her face this color. Okay, so it's really just a mix of 𝗬𝗙𝗏𝗏 red and a bit of yellow ochre, almost equal proportions. Okay, cut around the eyes like that. Okay, and you just got to be careful here that you are avoiding the eyes, because I find that it's better to add them in later while the paint has dried. So I'm just going to go around underneath her hat, and for those of you who've attended some of my recent workshops, I seem to be obsessed with this whole hat thing lately, this whole portraits with hats. People think I'm only painting portraits with people wearing hats in them. But I don't know, I suppose what I like is the shadow. So the shadow across the face really intrigues me. So I think that's why I keep coming back to it. Okay, getting there. And really light wash. I'm talking about a quarter paint, if anything, 1/4 paint to 3/4 water. Okay, or even more water in there. Now, cut around her lips as well. We'll get back to her lips in just a moment. And what I'll do is just bring this down a touch here, around to her neck, and just move that wash in like that. Okay, I think, yeah, this is pretty much her whole neck. So I'm just going to color this in quickly, because I don't want to spend too much time in this area, because the face wash is already starting to dry. And if you do notice that's happening, you can always drop in a bit more color, okay, while the paint is still wet. So just giving it another go like that. Cut over the top of the other washes. It's still pretty damp in there, so we should be okay. Okay. And what I like to do at this stage while the paint is still wet is actually to drop in any sort of shadows, some slight shadows and things like that, while we're able to. Now, on her face, it's very, very tricky actually to drop these in. It's not too apparent. There's only little bits and pieces that we can go by. So what I'm going to do first, I might actually just work with her lips a little bit. I'm going to soften that edge there. Let me add in a bit of red. I'm going to pick up some red, and the lipstick she's wearing is a kind of, it's a really dark red, isn't it? I'm going to add in a bit of neutral tint to this red. Okay, and let's just drop in a bit here. Now we can always relayer it if it's too light. But if we go in too dark, sometimes it can it can really throw the viewer off. It can draw too much attention. So I'm going in a little bit more conservatively with the lips, and then if I need to afterwards, I will darken a bit more. Now that shadow underneath her lip as well, that is actually a fair bit darker. So I won't be doing much with that. I'm just going to leave it for now. We'll go back to it afterwards. Where's my reference? I've lost my reference. Here it is. Okay. Fantastic. Got Marnaz here as well, and Philip Patterson in the YouTube chats. And 𝗪𝗔𝗧𝗥𝗘𝗦𝗧𝗔 says, "Hi Darren, I just finished my sketch and transferred it to my watercolor paper just in time, 𝗪𝗔𝗧𝗥𝗘𝗦𝗧𝗔. So I've only just started painting the face. You might be able to jump in and get through it. So I'm going to go ahead and let's figure out what else can we add in. What other sort of light bits can I add in very quickly? I'm going to just pick up a bit of this, a little bit of this red, and I'm going to drop it in, a tiny bit of red to a nose up there. A little bit of darker red. This is using a smaller round brush as well. Okay. I do find, for whatever reason, adding a little bit of red to the nose helps it kind of pop out a bit. Makes it look a bit more three-dimensional. It doesn't work with all skin tones though, so you got to be careful with how you do this. So just the slightest bit of red in there, like that. Okay. And coincidentally, her nose is slightly red as well. There we go. We're going to put in a little bit of color here on the left side of the face too. This is to get in an indication of her cheekbone, a little bit of a cheekbone. I might actually use some of this. I've got a bit of brown here. It's burnt sienna, a little bit of burnt sienna that I might drop in just a tiny bit there, a bit here, on the side of her mouth there, okay, in there, underneath her chin as well. You know, I might as well get in a bit of paint here while I can, if it gets in a bit of that wet and wet effect. I really like that wet and wet effect, so try add in as much as I can while the paint is still kind of wet. Okay. Right side of a face, there's not really much to add in there. It's pretty, it's just the right side of a cheek, a bit of shadow here at the base, and then maybe here a tiny bit of color there. And you'll notice with this hot press watercolor paper, it's already starting to dry, and becoming a challenge for me to paint this area underneath the chin. It's tricky. It's very, very tricky when you're working with hot press paper, and it's the rewards really pay off though, but you know, don't be disappointed if it doesn't work out for you the first few times. It's very fickle. Considering how fickle watercolors are in the first place. Okay, what I'm trying to do here is just get a little bit of color in her chin. You notice that her chin sticks out a little bit, just a little. Okay, and there's a highlight here, so kind of like a white highlight there. Okay, and I'm trying to just soften this bit off underneath there as well, underneath her chin. Okay, like that. There we go, just soften that off a little bit. So we have some basic tones in here already. I think we're off to a pretty good start. And, you know, again, we've got some darkness underneath her, you know, underneath her neck and what have you. But I think we can actually, do that later. We can use a darker sort of paint. I'm just having a look what we have, what else we can go into. Now, I'm thinking last time we sort of went with the shadows, but I'm going to go with her hair this time. I'm just going to try to get in parts of her hair, and I'll be using a flat brush. So I'm going to be picking up a bit of this brown. It's just, what is it? Burnt sienna, and a bit of raw umber mixed together. And I'm not trying to get the full tone of her hair. I'm just trying to get in a light wash of brown okay, over the top to get rid of that white of the paper. Okay, so we've got some of the hair running down that side like that. Okay, if you get some white streaks running through, that's okay as well. I think just finding this sort of layering it a little bit is really important. And don't worry also too much about cutting around her face at the moment, because we're going to be using some darker paint later to further sort of cut around her features, okay? But this is just to get in a light wash first. It's still kind of tricky because you know, I'm gonna have to move a little bit to do this bit, but here, going quite close to the edge of her face, like that. There we go. So I don't want to go too far in just yet. And these little white bits in here, that's what I'm talking about. Sometimes you get some skipping over the paper. If you go really quick, you can emphasize that effect even more, like this. Okay. What is this? This is actually a clothing, isn't it? Yeah, it is a clothing. Okay. So I'm going to just get in this part of her hair here. Okay. Light wash of burnt sienna. Okay. Don't worry about details. Just to add first wash over. Watercolors always looks better when you layer over the top. Adds extra details. If you can get it all in one wash, I definitely congratulate you, but more often than not, I need an additional wash to add in all the darks and the sharper sort of features in there. Fantastic. Now this bit at the bottom, I'm going to just blend in a bit of, I've got a bit of this Naples, not Naples, it's just a bit of buff titanium. Just drop that in here like that to indicate the, basically the top that she's wearing here. Just a little bit in there. There's not much at all to put in at first place. It's just mostly her head here. Just gonna go off and again get a bit of her hair coming through on this side there. Some bits of it floating over her shoulder. You might get a bit that's sort of off on an angle and then coming out like that. That one's coming across her shoulder there, like that. Okay, fantastic. That's looking good. A bit more of this gray I'm going to drop in here. It doesn't even look like gray anymore, does it? It's kind of another color. But you can also use neutral tint if you just water it down enough. Okay, it doesn't matter. I just want to distinguish her hair from the clothing. So all this stuff will be quick just to get in some color. Okay, looking good. Righto, I'm gonna work a little bit on the hat now. I think we can do with a bit more extra details over the face, but I want to get in another wash for the hat, and it's a mid-tone. It's almost the same tone as the shadow that runs across her face. And I think what we'll do instead actually is I just will add in a touch of color, perhaps just a touch of color to her nose. I just want to bring out a bit of those extra features because they've it's dried off and starts looking a bit flat now. So I'm going to drop in a little bit of red here into her nose. And you'll notice there's a bit of a highlight in the center of her nose as well. I wouldn't worry too much about that. We can go in with some gouache later. Okay, so I just want to get this this sort of bit of touch of red here on her nose that will make it stick out a little bit, project a bit more. Okay. And it all looks a bit weak at the moment, but once we have in the final darks and things like that, I think it will come together nicely. But yeah, we firstly need to get in just some of these basic parts, bits and pieces first. Okay, and let it kind of dry off and do its own thing. I like to soften the edges as well. Sometimes it looks a bit funny when it's drying. Hot press paper, it's always the edges look a bit sharp, but when it dries, it's less noticeable, especially if you're working on working with thin washes. Okay, there's a few questions here. Manisha says, what paper do you prefer for portraits? It's hard to say. I use both, as you can see, hot press and cold press paper. It's really hard to say. I like them both. Hot press allows you to get in more details, sharper, a little bit more vibrant colors, whereas cold press allows you to get in softer, more subtle portraits, atmospheric sort of backgrounds, much easier. So I like them both. Just depends on what effect you're hoping to achieve. Anne Francis says hi from Taipei. How are you going, Anne? And thank you for joining. We've got 𝗦𝗢𝗙𝗙𝗜𝗓𝗡 says, learning a lot from you. Thanks. Thank you, Anuja. Thanks for joining. We're gonna get back to business now. I'm having a look at her lips and I'm thinking, hey, you know, the top lip is actually a little bit darker. So how about we add in some more red in there? So just little corrections along the way. As the paper dries, you'll find that they really make a difference. You know, we're looking at the reference and we're trying to match it in ways. I'm not trying to, you know, get in every little bit of detail in here, but I think at the same time we need to have, I guess, a little bit of, you know, we're going to make sure that light source is represented effectively. So underneath the top lip, you'll notice it's darker, just on where the crease line is. So I've dropped in a little bit of paint there to try to emphasize that a bit, a little bit of darker paint. It's just a bit of the red mixed in with neutral tint. Here we have another, I'm doing the same thing, softening that edge. Around the edges of the lips here as well, you find that it also is softer. So I'm going to just pick a bit of water and drop it in at the edge like this. Okay, very, very quickly. Something like that. Not too much fiddling around, otherwise it will look a bit harsh. Okay, so that's better. The top lip certainly looks a bit more representational now. I'll probably actually darken that off a little bit. Let's add in some color to eyes. I can't actually tell what color eyes are. I'm just going to use maybe some greenish blue or something in here, but feel free to use whatever color you want. It's under the shade anyway, so it's very kind of, it's very dark in there, so you're not going to be able to see much, and it's going to be a unsaturated color. Okay, unsaturated sort of color. So we'll just add this in as something so that we've got, oh, what am I doing? I'm mixing brown with blue. I should be mixing blue with green, a little bit of blue and green together. Just want to get in a light wash of this color, something in here to show through. Okay, there, just a light little wash. Okay, don't worry about anything darker just yet. Okay. Okay, good. Alrighty. What else do we have to do? I think we can start playing around. I think we can start playing around with the hat. And after we get in her hat, we can put in this large shadow kind of going across her face, with this light sort of dark shadow blending in with the hat a little bit. I'm sure I'm going to plan this out. So hat first, this dark bit underneath the hat. We'll leave the top for a little bit later, or I might just do a quick indication of the color in there. and then I'm going to add in some more darkness over the top of the face after. So let's get going. Underneath the hat, it's a kind of a really just a grayish kind of color, but you can use whatever color you feel like. I'm going to go with a bit of this neutral tint mixed. It's really just a neutral color. I've got a bit of 𝗤𝗘𝗙𝗦𝗧𝗘 left over, which is a warm brown kind of color. Okay, so just mixing this up. And if you've got a gray of some sort, that will do. You can mix the gray with a tiny bit of red or a little bit of burnt sienna to just warm up this this color a little bit. Just think about what color you want running in there. You can try it out like this. Okay. And remember, this is going to dry a touch lighter once it's done. So make sure that you compensate for that by just going a little bit darker. Okay, a bit more red in there. Okay, just want to make sure I got enough in here. Okay, I'm going to go around the head here. Like that. The shadow on her face is slightly darker. It's slightly darker than this. If you look at it very, very carefully, that shadow on her face, because there's some reflected light coming back, hitting underneath the underneath her hat. Cutting across here. I'm just going around the hat there. Let's go around. It kind of just goes through the whole hat, doesn't it? Like this. There, just being careful. There we go. Slither of light hitting the edge of that hat, and then pretty much from that point on you can see it. So let's just get in this bit of red maybe in here too, just a tiny bit of red, but mostly just yeah, mostly grey. If you haven't got, I've used neutral tint, but neutral tint is just a code essentially for all your primaries mixed together. You've got a yellow, blue, and a red. Just mix those together and you can get the same sort of color. I just like to have a pre-mixed neutral tint with me so I don't have to be fussing around and mixing all the time. It's a convenience color just like green. So a lot of manufacturers sell it. There we go. Get that in a bit better like that. All right, so I think that shadow is looking pretty good underneath the hat. And remembering as well, I'm looking at that shadow and I'm keeping in mind, we've got to make the shadow across her face a little darker, and the shadow touching her hair also a teeny bit darker as well. Okay. There we go. We've got that in. I'm going to leave it. Let's have a look at the top part of her hat now. All I'm going to do is just dilute this down a bit more and go over the top like this. Okay, very, very light wash of grey. It's like 5% paint, 5% or less. You almost barely detect it in there. Okay, but I will drop in a bit of inconsistencies and things. Sometimes when it looks too clean, it just looks boring, and I don't want that. Fantastic. Okay, this bit here as well of this light touching a hat, I want to soften this edge, create a bit of a softer edge in some parts like that. There, soften this edge as well, let it kind of bleed in nicely like that. Maybe just soften this edge on that part of the hat. Might form some funny patterns or whatever, but you know, we'll survive. Okay, so that's pretty much all the, I would say, the lighter kind of tones in here. The rest of it is just picking out the shadows across her face and all the little details, the darkness in her hair, underneath her chin, some of this stuff that we can play with as well. If you have any questions so far, leave a chat, leave a message in the comments, and I'll get back to your message. We've got Pamela here as well. Pamela Meredith, good to see you. I don't know why, but the light that I've got over the table, it's creating these funny little streaks of light coming down, but I hope you can should still be able to see me all right. I don't know why it's doing that recently. I must have put it up too high and it's getting in the way of the camera. But anyhow, looks like I said, we've got most of the little bits and pieces here. Now it's trying to add in all of the final shadows and what have you. And we've got Kate here, 𝗢𝗙𝗙𝗢𝗡𝗢𝗡, and says that she's a bit late. Can watch it after, Kate. Louise Davids says, nice. Thank you, Louise. Also got 𝗦𝗢𝗙𝗙𝗜𝗢𝗓 from India. How you going, 𝗦𝗢𝗙𝗙𝗜𝗓? And I think you you knew. I may have I think you maybe a bit new, but thank you for joining. Okay. I'm going to continue. This is often the part where people most commonly give up, funny enough, because they look at a painting and they think there's nothing there. It looks too light. Everything looks all washed out. But if you manage to get to this stage, you're in a very good position, because basically you need all these sort of light areas in here to be able to imply a lot of the darker areas. In fact, I think even the hat could do with the second wash, just another quick wash over the top. I think that it's slightly, this side here, it's a little bit too light. The right side I'm happy with. So if you ever feel like you need to add another wash, don't hesitate. Just come in, just drop that paint in like this, because this happens to me all the time. I estimate whatever the concentration is, and then when it starts drying, I realize, damn, it's actually a lot darker than that. But so you can go ahead and redo it like this. You know, I'd take more care with areas like on the face when you try to do this, because you can lift off paint. But if you're looking at areas like this where you've got a hat or something like that, I find it's you can get away with it a lot more. Okay, so that will just darken that off more. It's going to create, I think for me, just a more striking indication of the light on her face. That's why I'm just darkening this a little bit. But remember, it's going to dry off again, another color, a little bit lighter as well. Okay, same deal as I was doing before. I'm going to soften this edge with a bit of water on the brush. Just tap that edge like that, and that will shift in and there, and that's it. So I think that'll do the trick. Okay, good. So I might grab out the hairdryer just to speed things up a bit. I don't know why, but I tend to procrastinate a little bit more when I'm painting on these lives. I'll drop the Okay, so that's dried off a little bit. What I'm going to do now is pick up a flat brush. You can use a round brush, it doesn't quite matter. I like to use a flat brush because it just helps to get this sort of cutting around effect better. And I'm going to pick up a wash of red, a little bit of red here, a little bit of that yellow. It's basically the same color, almost that same color we used at the beginning to color in her face, but we're going to add in a little bit of gray or neutral tint. So this is why I sort of have my own neutral tint here. It just saves time. I don't have to figure out what colors to mix in there. Okay, because this shadow on her face has a kind of reddish hue to it. Okay, and let's just go. Drop that in there. A bit more of that there. And I'm trying to remember that this shadow also needs to be a little darker than the shadow on her hat. Now, because the area of her hat has already dried, when you go over the top now, it's going to create a sharp edge here. Okay. Just go around her eyes a little bit. And I find when you're putting in this wash over the top bit here like that, it's so easy to lose the eyes. So that's why I'm kind of keeping them lightened at the moment. I haven't put any paint in them, and they look funny. They look really funny at the moment, but it's just so that I don't lose them to the darkness in here. But we will completely darken that area. Let's have a look. A little bit more neutral tint in here. Let me just darken just a touch more in here. Okay. This shadow that goes across her nose as well, and the rest of her face is super important. It has to be sharp. Just going through. That's why I use this flat brush. It saves me a good amount of time rather than using the round brush. The edge already looks like the effect I want to get. Where have I drawn it in? Sort of like here. Where does it go? Down here somewhere? Like that. Like I said, it looks a bit funny at the moment because her eyes are just popping out of the dark like that, but they won't stay like that forever. The brush is a little bit too large, but I can just make do. Connect that up. There. Holding my breath. Okay. I think that'll do the trick. It already looks okay, so I don't want to muck it up. Now for the hair, I'm going to mix in a bit of neutral tint and a little bit of brown. Darker sort of shade. Now this has to be darker than her actual face, the shadow on her face. Okay, pretty dark in here, so I'm just going to go over the top like that. This will dry off hopefully, and I'll be able to see inside and get some extra details running through. Okay, so a little bit here, and again, you know, the shadow, it sort of just cuts over parts of her hair. You can see like here, just sort of runs over and goes into her face a little bit. I'm going to do that bit last so that it doesn't blend so much, because that part of her face is still wet from the previous wash. But I will take the opportunity to go over this other area which I can put in there. Let's have a look on this side as well. Why not? Let's just drop in some paint here, brown, neutral tint, like that. Let's have a look. Holding the brush a little further down as well, that will give me a chance to get in a bit more of a sharper edge and more precision when you hold the brush further down. The great thing about flat brushes is that you can hold them so that they on the little corner and paint with the teeny little corner there. Now we've got an interesting situation here because it's this is going to dry. This is going to dry perhaps a bit later. I might just siphon a bit of that color over. If possible, if we can just siphon a bit of that over like here and bring that down. Again, a sharper shadow on this side of the hair, a little bit of a sharper shadow, but most of it is actually pretty dark, especially on the right side of her face. Let's have a look at the reference picture again, it's pretty dark. I mean, the hair on that right side of her head is not as dark as like that shadow, but it's almost. So we need to indicate that. And the great thing about these flat brushes is that you can get in these strokes like this that look, indicate, sort of dry off the brush. Dry off the brush a little bit, and then just do this sort of thing, like that, right? Hold the brush at the end and just drag down like that. Okay, and that can indicate a clump of hair and make it look a bit more softer in ways. And then I'll just layer over the top of that once more later. But I'm just trying to siphon a little bit of that paint over. Can you see? It's subtle, but I'm just bringing a little bit over so that when I go into this side of the face in a moment, it will form a bit more of a sharper edge. So I haven't done the edges of that face as well, the side of that face as well. I try to paint everything in like the same wash if possible, letting bits and pieces dry. Some of it connects, some of it not. Okay, this is actually pretty dark still. Let's go in and get in little indication of that. Again, just that same technique I was mentioning before. Quick strokes like that. Dry the brush off and then just drop it in like that. Yeah. Okay. I'll be able to do it here as well, perhaps. Like that. That. Okay. Whoops. Too dark, but doesn't matter. We can just redistribute that like that. You might have a few strands coming through there. This part of her neck is also going to be a little darker, which I'll get in later. Okay. I do find this shadow underneath the neck to be really important as well. It draws out the jawline. Okay, but we're getting there, slowly but surely. What is this? We've got a bit of. So this is what we can do for this side of the hair. I can actually just drop in because it's mainly. If you look at it, it's mainly just light areas on that side. So I can just do this sort of thing and drop in a bit of color here, downwards. Hopefully, will indicate part of a hair, but on the side of a face, we got to get this bit in darker. It's got to be a darker edge here to draw out her the side of a jaw and stuff. So we'll finish this bit off. Let's drag this over here like that. Okay. Drag this over as well. Touch. Oops, it's going in too much into her face. Like that. And sometimes you're going to get happy accidents where things just mix and you don't intend for it to mix. I don't know, like what's happening at the moment actually. Yet to be decided whether it's a happy accident or whether it's just an accident full stop. But I prefer it blend rather than sort of do what it's doing here on this side, which is probably slightly too hard of an edge. Okay, so if I can soften that little, just soften that edge with a bit of water like that. Remember, this is going to dry off lighter as well, the edge of her hair. So you may think I've got to go in and paint the face again and give that shadow on the face another wash. Maybe, but I don't think so. It's deceiving. It looks like it's gonna, it's a lot darker, but it will dry lighter. That comes from just painting a lot experience, and I still get it wrong. I still get the wrong tones, the wrong colors. Okay, as you guys would have known in some of my demonstrations, I make mistakes all the time, but you just learn to work with them and own those mistakes. View them as just part of the beauty. Sometimes there's beauty in imperfection, and I don't think that it at the end of the day that just copying it exactly as many talented artists, not many, but you can see some really talented artists can do. I think turning it into something that's your own, there's something magical about that. Here we go, just bring down a few more strands of a hair. I know it sort of bit comes out like this there, like that. I'm just mindful here to that I'm not fiddling too much. I don't want to spend all day doing this. You notice this part of her hair also is darker, slightly darker. Okay, so it's coming up, it forms a bit of a, a bit of this upward sort of stroke like that. I'm trying to get the contours of her hair, and so that's what I'm doing here, just with the brush work, light little sporadic brush work. Okay, but trying not to get rid of all the lights on there as well. Super important to make sure you're preserving some of that. Let's even use, what have I got here? I do have other flat brushes as well that create the same sort of effect, but to a smaller degree. So like this, see, just a smaller flat brush, and I can just pick up a lighter wash of this brown and drop that in here like that. Soften off that edge a bit near her face. There, there. We can just look at what's going on in her neck as well. Let's put in some red color over the top of this stuff. Got a bit of a shadow, a bit of light showing through her neck here, like that. And there, where is it going? We've got like a slither of shadow, a slither of light running through like that. Okay, this is kind of like red and neutral tint mixed together. There, reinforce this bit underneath the chin as well here. Probably be a bit more neutral tint. It's too red. Good. The hair is a little darker than this wash. I'm just worried I may be going too dark here, but the main thing is that we're just creating a bit of detail around her jaw. Okay, so creating an edge around her jaw. So as long as I can imply that, I'm happy. Okay. Soften that part of her jaw. This part is actually pretty soft in this section. Just put a bit of water in that sort of intermediary area. Just have to shift it around a bit because just want it to be a little bit more defined. There. There, but more here. Okay. Good. Some more here on the right side of her neck. I mean, this is all just pretty much areas of her neck. And there's some like softer shadows in here as well. Just leave a bit of light like that there, and color the rest of it in. This area is kind of like a shirt to the left. Okay, that we kind of colored in a bit before. Drop in some more of this red, a little bit of the neutral tint as well into this mix, and some sharper shadows in here. Just a bit of cutting around. Why not? Okay, and yeah, again, I'm just looking at what else can we add in? What else can we how can we put in some more detail in here? About just a few more brush strokes for her hair, and a few little bits and pieces layering over the top to get in some more flowiness to her hair, some of the smaller strands and that kind of stuff here. So just picking up a light wash of brown paint, and here I am just going through. You'll notice also parts of her hair is not just, there are bits of darkness in, so sort of here you'll see there's a strand that's a bit darker, so change it around from time to time. I do like how this right side's turned out. It's the sort of tone that I was looking for. More neutral tint perhaps in here. Just another another bit of hair coming down here, just running vertically, a bit more here, like that. And here's a little tip that will that will hopefully help you out. Now, it wasn't until a few years back that I learned to try not to almost paint what I see as objects, but I'd look at just the light and the dark areas, and I just try to paint the shapes of the light and dark areas in there. And when you do that, it looks more realistic, ironically, than if you look at it as oh, that's a strand of hair, or that's an eye or something like that. I just look at them as shapes, funny enough. And somehow it just always looks more accurate, rather than focusing too much on subjective things that we see. There we go. Let's just putting in some more paint in here. This is going to probably turn into a bit of a weird bloom thing. I'm suspecting this will turn into a funny bloom thing, but I don't want it to, so I'm just trying to, repaint it a little bit here. Another interesting thing as well is that it will soften out. It looks, this little bit here looks funny because it's still wet, but when it's dried, you'll see what I mean. You'll barely be able to tell that it looked a bit funny before and sort of out of place. I only know that by all the different times I've tried doing this and sort of figuring out the end product, realizing I was worrying about nothing. So a little bit of, this is just a bit of neutral tint, really dark neutral tint here. Okay, and why am I using this is because I'm trying to just get in the really dark areas of a hair. Okay, and I'm also using a lot of dry brush here, as you can see, not much softer sort of work, but this all will soften down and look a bit more subdued once it's dried. Okay, and just keep repeating this process. Just keep repeating it, and you will end up with something, hopefully, that looks like hair when you stand back. When you get too close, it doesn't really look like much, but when you stand back, you will know what I mean. It takes on a form, and overall, the shape will appear as a bunch of hair or something like that. Okay, good. How are we all doing, everyone? I haven't checked the chats for a little bit. There's not a whole number of people in here today. I think it's just a quiet one. Tonight, most people are asleep. I'm just going to go through the chats. Seeing where I'm up to, guys. Skip through that. I don't know what's going on. Manisha says, did you add a bit of red to the yellow ochre to get the first shadow of the hat on the face? Yes, I did. I put a bit of red, a bit of yellow ochre, and a bit of neutral tint there, and that's how I managed to get this shadow in. Okay, the shadow was almost the same color as the hat. I was trying to make the shadow a little bit darker, but I can still get away with it. It may even be, in some areas it is, some areas it's not. See, when you're using hot press paper, you get funny big areas of inconsistency. See this bit dried off a bit lighter, this is dried off with a kind of funny bloom. You got to just accept it. Even here, there's a bit of lightness on the ridge of the nose. It's just how it is. It's the nature of using hot press paper. You just get these funny little things that happen. And the more you fiddle around with it, the more funny it starts looking. Just enjoy how it looks, the style of how it looks. Anne Alexander says, I'm from India. Welcome, Anne. And Gail says, what's your favorite brand for watercolor brushes? Love your portrait. I can see it coming together beautifully. Thank you, Gail. Glad you have some confidence in this. I'm also hoping this will work out. It's looking decent at the moment. So my favorite brand for watercolor brushes, I don't actually have any particular favorite brand, Gail. I have some links in the description of the video on YouTube if you want to check the particular brushes that I use. I had some of these brushes given to me for free by some watercolor companies, and some of them I bought. So these brushes here, like a set of 𝗙𝗏 brushes. Where are they? These three. They're a set of 𝗙𝗏 brushes. You can find them under the description of my YouTube channel. Yeah, they're just a set of three. They're pretty good for portraits and just general landscapes. Soft hairs pick up a lot of paint. In terms of synthetic brushes, most of my brushes are synthetic. They last a fair bit longer than natural hair brushes, and also they're getting a lot better. Like, you can pick up a lot more paint. I used to remember, years back where synthetic brushes were just they were terrible. Just the ones that you pick up from the shops, and they don't have a they come in packs of 20, and they just don't pick up any water, and they're dry as anything. They're a little bit different now. There's quite a few manufacturers that do really good synthetic brushes. In fact, a lot of them use the same materials. Again, you can find a little bit more under the description of my YouTube channel. I have some affiliate links there as well that you can have a look at, and that might help you out. But I would say, if you're starting out, nice set of synthetic brushes will do you fine. In fact, from almost all my paintings, that's all I use. Let's have a look. Who else do we have here? I think that's it, guys. I think that's all the chats for now. I'm going to continue on, and let's work a bit on her face. Now, this bit here underneath the chin, I'm not so pleased with that, so I'm going to redo it a little bit. See here, not dark enough. It needs to be a little bit darker, like that. So why not just indicate that more? Okay, like that. You'll notice I'm not afraid to go in and alter things if I need to. I try not to if it's not necessary, but sometimes if there's a major thing that I feel like I have to get in, and for this bit it's just the emphasis of her jaw, emphasis of that jawline. I just have to do it. Otherwise, I feel like it's just missing something. Okay, there we go. We're getting there. Very tricky in using cold press watercolor paper to get in soft shadows at times. Very, very tricky. Soft edges. They can often just blend out. And you can just create some, terrible blooms or sharp areas of horrible sharpness that just doesn't work. So, in the photo, it's actually pretty soft underneath here of her chin. So I'm trying to get that in, trying to get a bit of that in. Okay, maybe it's worked, maybe it's not. I'm just going to leave that. I'm just going to leave that for now. Let's work a bit on her eyes, tiny bit on her eyes now, and we'll get them to the right sort of tones. And also what I want to do is add in a little bit more color around her eyes and get in her eyebrows, that kind of thing too. So if you've got cold pressed paper, it makes it a lot easier actually. You can respray it and then drop in bits of the shadows and things like that. But when you're using hot pressed paper, it's tricky because you reintroduce water and it already starts to bloom. So a little bit of color just around the edges. I always start around the corners of the eyes like this, and then start to, this is just a bit of red mixed with neutral tint, and just start to outline the edges of the eyes a little like this. Okay, while Put in the bottom as well here. Okay, a little bit like that. The eyelid there as well, like that. You know, you will find there's a slight sort of shadows in this area too, like very little bits of shadows for the, you know, like this just around her eyes. So I can just drop in a bit of darker paint there. You know, you even find it over here on this side, like that, just a bit of darker paint like that. Bit of the ring around the eyes. Okay, let's put in a bit of the pupil. Why not just drop in a bit quickly like that. Some of the eyebrows. I've lost a bit of the eyebrows actually before, so I'm gonna have to just wing this a little bit and guess where it is. I'm gonna go up and then come down a bit like that in the edges. Let's try this one. I'm gonna try to just get it in with a couple of brush strokes rather than put in, try to draw each eyelash in. Okay, just simplify it down a bit like that. Good. And this is what I mean with cold press, hot press paper. Very tricky. It's starting to lift off that previous layer. And I'm just, what I'm trying to do is just add in a little bit of shadow around her eye. So, you just have to dab in a bit of paint in here and hope that it spreads okay. Maybe a bit underneath the eye here as well. And this weird kind of, I don't know how you put it, this weird sort of bloomy effect can actually be used. Like there's a portrait artist called 𝗪𝗘𝗙𝗦𝗜𝗧𝗘, I think her name is, and she uses so many blooms on her hot press watercolor paper. It's incredible the way that she manages to make it look so natural and so beautiful with these blooms and imperfections everywhere. Like, you know, this thing here, I don't know what I'm going to do with that. I'm actually struggling a little bit with that section, but soften that a little around there. Let's add in a little bit more darkness, a little bit more neutral tint perhaps in there. Just work with it, and if it dries that way, well, I just have to accept it. It's not the end of the world. Okay, maybe it'll look good, or maybe not. That edge of the eye in here, because there's little bits of darkness inside the eye that we need to indicate. It's just slowly building that up. The eyes are not also completely white. They kind of are a little bit, I'd say like a bit of gray in the edges. So this is why I also want to drop in a tiny bit of this neutral tint in the edges, maybe a bit of red. To get in a little bit of red or something like that in there. A little bit of quick wash of color so that it's not all completely white. Okay, fantastic. Let's have a look. What else can we do? Underneath the eye here, I'll just add in a little bit of darkness just underneath. Eyelid that is darker. Underneath the fold, it's just a little bit darker there. Look at this funny thing. That's bugging me a little bit, but I can't do much about it at the moment, so I'm gonna have to just leave that. Softer sort of shape around the eye socket, as you can see here, just a soft little shape like that there, and the carries on to the right hand side. This kind of comes down a bit underneath like that. Okay, sort of runs off to the right side of her face. It's almost like a micro shadow or something like that, running to the right side. Good. More darkness up the top of her eyelid here. You gotta have a lot of patience for this type of stuff. In fact, one of the reasons why I do portraiture is to improve my patience with little details and stuff like that. My go-to is landscapes because very little preparation is required. You can just jump in there. No need to worry at all really about too much proportional related stuff. I mean, bits and pieces here and there, but for the most part, not really. Now, I'm going to take a break from my eyes. This is just need a break. And let's put in some color for her nostrils, just a light indication first. I'm using some neutral tint, just watered down a bit, and I'm just going to pop in the bit of her nostril on the left-hand side and a bit on the right-hand side like that. Quickly. Yeah. Good. And her nostrils are really, really dark actually, so I can probably just go in quite, now that I've got the general location of them okay, I can drop in more paint, more darkness to darken them off, because what I want to do is just get that shadow underneath the nostril in almost at the same time. Maybe a bit more of the red on the tip of her nose, but we'll see how we go. We'll see how we go, because I don't want to be too trigger happy and stuff it up. Okay, so this is going to dry a little. I'll put in a bit for the mouth just quickly as well. It'll just, we start kind of on the edges of the mouth like this, and use a kind of broken line, because it's tempting to just draw the whole line in, but for some reason it just always looks funny if you do it that way. So a little bit like that first. Okay. Now this shadow under her nose, again, it's like a kind of reddish shadow. So a bit of red mixed with neutral tint. And what will I do? Well, firstly, let's do a little bit of the one on the left side of her nose, which is pretty light. Here, just a bit of light red underneath that side of her nose. And then you get like a larger reddish sort of shadow here, which is pretty dark. It's almost the same tone as like this bit on her underneath her hat. So we need to really focus on this part. Like that. Pretty dark. Shadow. Okay. You have to blend it onto the rest of the nose. Some bit of paint here. Leaving out a little bit of the right side of the nostril. Okay, a little bit of white on that right side of the nostril, like that. And then, of course, joining it up here, where there's a softer shadow there as well. And where we've got some red, this will come in handy. A little bit more red. I'll just wash down that red a little bit and drop it in there. And get some more pink in into here. Okay, just the tip of the nose, a little bit more pink in there, and soften that edge. Soften that edge again. We've got a bit more color, and for some reason it just keeps on disappearing, that pink. Every time I put it in there, it just goes, it dries off, and you can't see it anymore. But so we have a combination here of a soft shadow on her nose, which actually goes onto the bulbous part of her nose. Like here, and then further down it turns into a sharp shadow. So you can only do that by trying to like paint them both at the same time. It's tricky, but you just have to practice it, playing with those soft edges and hard and soft edges, and you'll eventually get better at it. I still see opportunities for myself to improve in a bit of those sort of spots as well. Okay, good. That looks all right. I mean, I need to indicate the nostrils a little bit more later, but this will do the trick for now. Oh no, I've put in some dark paint here, and I don't want that there. I'm going to scrub that off a little bit. What are we doing, Darren? Scrub that off a touch. It's when you can get into troubles, when you're correcting things as well. Another thing that can happen is that you mess up the entire thing. So this shadow on the right side of a nose here, if you see, this is a soft edge. So I've made a sharp edge, but I soften that. A bit of water in here. Just a little water. That looks better. A little bit better now. Good. I think her nose looks okay. I won't play around with that anymore, other than putting in perhaps the nostrils later. Extra detail on the darkness of the nostrils. Here we go, back into the lips again. Red and black to indicate this sort of line down the center of her lips, parting of her lips there. And of course, yet again, a shadow underneath her lip, which is going to be pretty challenging. Again, similar sort of thing that we're going to do as well for the under part of the lip. Let's have a look. I'm just having a look to see if there's any more chats coming through. Gail says, I agree. I have natural brushes and don't use them. Synthetic is better. I'm trying Princeton Velvet Touch brushes. They're really nice and hold a lot of water. Yeah, the synthetic brushes are getting pretty good, and they're a lot more affordable as well. They last longer. So that's why I use them. But these ones are not synthetic. I'm pretty sure they're like cerulean or something like that. Cerulean brushes. Pom Pom says, have to work now, we'll come back another time. Not a problem. Watch the replay. Gail says, I'm glad that you are talking about hot press paper versus cold press. I mostly use cold press, but was gifted some hot press paper. What paintings would you use it for? Well, paintings such as this, for example, give it a try. You can paint pretty much anything that you usually paint on cold press, but just use hot press paper, and just see how you perform with it. Okay, I've done landscapes even with hot press, and it's hard to work with, but you get sharper shapes, more vibrancy. It just you know, get blooms, things like that. But there's just something beautiful about it with the edges. When the edge is dry, I don't know, like got to give it a try. Got to give it a try. Left a bit of this. I know people use hot press for florals as well. So that might be a thing. That might be a thing too. If you're liking the video and you're enjoying it, just a quick like. If you like the video, hit the like button, and also if you click the like button and share it with your friends, or share it with a group or something like that, I'd be really appreciative as well. It just helps me get out this video a lot more quicker and to different people. So what was I doing again? Well, going into that shadow underneath the chin, and you know, you find there's also a, you know, here on the side of a lip, there's actually shadow too. Like it kind of comes up like there, like a darker part of a lip anyway, and then it runs down. And at this point, you might be thinking that the lips are not dark enough. they're not red enough. So, of course, we can start putting in a little bit more color. When you're layering in such light colors, it's often that you may get the wrong tone or what have you. And I do need to make that top lip a little darker, so that's why I am just trying to add in a bit of paint here. This is a bit of red mixed with neutral tint. Okay, red with neutral tint. The right side of the lips is going to be darker because of the shadow. However, this side is also a little bit darker in the edge as well. So I'm just darkening that edge a bit here and dropping in a bit more of this paint as we can get in. There we go. A light, perhaps just a little light wash of red as well for the bottom lip, because it's still, that's too light. A little bit of red there. Okay, like that. Bit there. Good. And of course the edges of her lip, again, they are too hard, so I can just drop in, this is my round brush, a bit of water, clean the brush off and just add in a little bit of water onto the edges of the lips like this, and hopefully that will help it to spread a bit more and appear more natural. Okay, though I have kind of enlarged the lips a teeny bit because of that by accident, so you got to be careful. I would have probably used a smaller brush, actually. Just gone in a bit too quickly there. Now I'm going to go in and just do this shadow on the lips. I want to get this out the way. So bottom of the lip kind of ends here, roughly about here. You can see a bit of like shadow almost cut across there, and then a bit come across like that there. And I'm going to just drop in this red and neutral tint mixed together. Red and neutral tint here. Here, let's just go around like that. This is intricate soft edges all in here that we got to be careful with, around the lips especially, the bottom part of the lip. Okay, let's just get in this shadow. This needs to be softened, this left side there. Bit of water, and let's do a scrubbing on that side, do the trick. Of course here you can do the same thing to perhaps lift off a bit of paint that was spread a bit too far on that edge. Just being careful as well, I don't want it to spread all too much. Okay, and I think that should dry off to a nice color, the same sort of deal that we've got up there for the nose. Okay, same sort of deal for the nose. This shadow does need to be, this little bit of the lip does need to be softened off here though, the bit on the right side. I'll just drop in a bit of water there. Whoops, some of it's gone down into the lip, but look, that's how it is. That's how it is. We'll let it do its thing. Sometimes this is how you end up getting funny blooms and stuff, but they end up giving the portrait an interesting kind of character. The top part of the lip as well has a little shadow. It's difficult to see, but it does come through, cut through the lip like here, there underneath like this, like that, and kind of forms part of the softness, the soft sort of shape here in the top part of the lip like that. Okay. Might leave that for a bit and we'll come back later. We'll come back later to recheck it. And see you later, Sarah. Bedtime for you. Manisha says, will you yellow the white of the eyes to make them look dark? For that part of the eyes, I'm probably just going to be adding some neutral tint, a little bit of neutral tint in there to darken it off a bit, and it's kind of neutral tint mixed with red, so kind of this same mix that I'm using here, but just on a lighter tone. So something like this. Okay, there, just darken that down a bit more. And here, you can add in a bit more, drop in a bit more color to get it to the desired color. It's tricky, that's for sure. I've not really outlined her clothing all too well either. I might just pick up a bit of neutral tint just quickly and to put in a few little bits and pieces here for her clothes. That's like a bit of the shoulder or something like that there. Not really a whole lot in there, to be honest. We might even just we may even just be able to disregard that, actually. So that's already darkened off that area of the eyes very slightly, and you don't have to make it, you know, resemble the reference. I mean, you can change it, and like you can create it, you can make it a little bit lighter in here if you want to draw out the eyes, create more contrast with the eyes, because this photo has been edited or whatever by the photographer, probably to emphasize the shadow a bit, but you don't have to do that if you don't want to. You can just, you know, you can just add in some extra light in there if you want. Bit more color around the eye, the edges of the iris. I can't remember what it's called. Someone, I remember I read about this a while back. The coronal ring or something like that, I think. That the part of the eye, and here we go. Got bits of the iris here, just dropping in a bit. The iris, the pupil. I need to reset my human biology stuff. Okay, and you want to soften it as well, too, so there's not too much sharpness in for the eyes. I might put in a bit more color for the eyes as well, a bit more blue plus green together. Blue and green to get a little wash to darken off that part of the eyes a little bit more. I feel like it's still too light in there, so just drop in a bit of color and I'll let that do its thing. Okay, seems like the centers, the pupils have disappeared as well. Bit of indication for the re-indication anyway for the eyelid here. Just a little bit like that. Just neutral tint plus red. One here for the eyelid to the left. There we go. There we go. Just a bit there. Notice just how subtle that is. You can not really, doesn't really stick out all that much. And the eyebrows as well. I mean, you might think, hey, this has dried off a bit funny. Let's just put in a bit more color in here to emphasize the arch on her eyebrows. And then make it come down like to the point here. That's how we're going to tapers downwards, so it's like, oops, that's okay. It's not the most perfect indication, but it does the trick. There you go. Finish this one off too. And you start, press down lightly and then push down harder, and that will create a small point, which then merges into a larger point. It's a little trick I learned from painting watercolor leaves. Okay. It's all coming together slowly but surely. It is slowly coming together. Even this little shadow here, that's looking all right. I will soften this edge a bit on the lip. Just soften that a bit there. You can lift off some paint and things like that as well later. What else have we got? The eyes again. Let's just put the direction of those pupils going to the left a little bit. You've got to be careful with where you place the pupils as well, because they're in different places. The person looks a bit they just have to be kind of try to make them face the same direction. Like here, she's kind of looking off into the distance to the left, sort of thing. That's what I'm aiming for. Looking at those, both the pupils. Okay. Now, final touches. Let's put in some little eyelashes. Okay, just a bit there. If you've also got a smaller brush, because I have this tiny one here, which is fantastic for this type of stuff too. Little detailing work. You can go over the tops of the eyes like this to put in whatever eyeliner or what have you there. And then just pick up the paint, very dark paint. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. And there we go. Easier, much easier to get in some of these eyelashes. And you, in my experience, you only got one chance to do this to make it look right. Otherwise, it's sort of I'm not the best. I'm not the best with eyelashes. So make everything count. Every little, brush stroke. There we go, like that. That can go down and up, down and up. Like that in the edge. Let's try this one now. Left one's always harder for me because I'm right-handed, It's always going to be the case when you're, whichever hand you're using. Manisha says, thank you. It's really coming out well. Yeah, I'm liking this. It's really starting to take form. So thank you. And let's continue on. Put in a bit more for the left side of the eye. We're going to have to just, again, pick up some more of that darker paint. Indicate the eyelashes and what have you. Really, the more you spend on it, the more time you spend fleshing out the details, the better it will look. But there's a certain point where it just there's diminishing returns, and you risk making it look too artificial. Okay, you find also on the bottom of the eyes there are little eyelashes that might come off, but they're just so minute. I'm not gonna really indicate too much of that, like this. I'm actually adding in detail, more detail than is actually in there. Okay. Here we go, the left side of the eye. Okay, like this, that's one, two. There's a bit more darkness on the edge there as well. As I said, the left side is always trickier for me. I hope I don't muck it up. Let's put in a bit of lighter eyelashes at the base here. Yeah, just again to mirror that that right side of the eye. Okay. Yeah, the lashes look a lot better on the right-hand side, unfortunately. But look, I don't think most people be able to tell the difference once it's all dried. you can just go over it one more time, and if you stuff it up and you're not able to get in the individual lashes, you can just combine them all into one larger sort of shape, and that works also. Like that. Okay. It's kind of like this, see? One big clump of lashes like that. Just will also accomplish the same thing. Even that one out now that I've sort of fiddled with the left-hand side one. Too much. That one's gone too far out. Yeah. Okay. I think we're getting to the end of this. Really all I'll probably do is add in a bit of the background later on. Probably some extra details on the face, like if I can think of anything else to add in. But you know, at this point, you know, we're almost done. Bit of this bit of the lip, the inner part of the lip here, there. There we go. Cut that off in the corner. I don't know, I was thinking about darkening the nostrils as well, but we'll maybe darken a little bit of them, like just the side like this. And then the right hand side, just a touch of paint in there, but I don't want to overdo it. Okay, we'll see how that dries, and if I might need to soften it off, we'll do that. What else is there? I think that's pretty much it. We just get in again the ring around the eye, just a little bit more indication for that ring around the eye. A little bit of paint there. I tend to break up the ring as well, so like I have part of it that's like yeah, just break it up a little bit so that I don't draw the whole thing in, just bits and pieces. Part of it, I have like a broken line in an area. Again, the pupils. This is just put in a bit of the pupil. They say that if you make the pupils larger, the subject appears more attractive. But I don't know how true that is, but it's just something that I've read. Just try to make the pupils roughly the same size. You don't want one looking obviously larger or smaller. It's just a little bit of paint added in here, like that. Just keeping a bit more there. You know, the eyelids, why not just re-emphasize the eyelids a bit like this. There, run that through the back. This eyelid, just run that one more time through, like this. Okay, we're almost there. I'm just going to get in the background. So for the background, I'm going to be using this larger brush. So this is just a little watercolor round brush, mop brush. Margaret says, thanks Darren, I'm going to finish mine tomorrow. I am just very tired tonight. Enjoy your evening. You too, Margaret, and hope you have a good night's sleep. This will be available afterwards. I'm actually a bit tired as well. I need to get something to eat after this. So I'll do the background pretty quickly. But let me know if you're still watching. I can still see there's a bunch of you guys on YouTube and on Facebook. It's a smaller crowd this time. I'd say about maybe 20-ish sort of people, 20 to 30 people. So it's good to have you here. Let me know if you have any questions as well. You know, what you're up to, if you need extra help, that kind of thing. I'm around and will answer your questions, okay, for you. So the background, I'm going to go ahead and put in I'm going to use some cooler colors, actually. A bit of blue here and there, and maybe some some other dulled down sort of colors. But because we've got a lot of warm colors in here, I think a bit of cooler colors would be good. Mine has says I'm still working on it. Mine has Art Sydney. Cool. And you can always work on it afterwards as well, and just play around with bits. I tend to lift off some color here and there, get in some highlights wherever. That's a good habit to get into as well. Just some finishing touches. Now, I like to just drop in some color randomly. Pick up a bit of paint and just drop in, a bit of that blue here, maybe a bit of blue here. Okay, I've accidentally gone into the hat, but doesn't matter. Let's put in a bit of color here and a bit of, it's just water, by the way. Here I've got some other color, which is, what is it? I don't know what it is. It's a lavender color. If we look at the background of the reference picture, it's kind of, you've got, it's kind of like a wooden block or something like that behind her, like here. And bit of light a bit here. So, I mean, it really depends on what you want out of this, but I like to just create my own sort of abstract background. It's my time to just relax a little bit and not worry too much about all the details and whatever in the background. Sometimes that can detract from the subject if you detail the background too much. So keep things nice and soft, and experiment around with the colors as well. I love playing around with these sort of abstract shapes and things and just seeing what will happen. This is just a bit of brown I'm dropping in here. It's really brown, a bit of purples, and a bit of blue. Okay, and trying to join them all together to make one, general background. Okay, so I'm just looking at them as cool and warm colors, cool and warm colors. But I don't want it to be too colorful there as well, so keeping it pretty restricted to just a few colors. Okay, if it starts looking too sort of gaudy as well, I tend to dull that area down or go over the top of it again. This combination of warm and cool, the oppositional colors create quite a beautiful looking background, and complementary colors, playing around with those complementary colors as well, super important. Bit of blue here, because we've missed out a bit. This is not blue, this is lilac, isn't it? Lavender color. Bit here. Maybe I put in some purple here, like that. Just drop that in. Oops, too much water, but it's okay. We can shift that across. There. Across the head like that. What have we got here on that left-hand side? I actually quite like that color there, that brownish color, that burnt sienna. Bit of warmth, bit of relief from all this, the blues and stuff in here. So why not just drop in a bit of that there as well. I think this part of the paper isn't sized so well. You can see that the paint is resisting a tiny bit there. Sometimes you get that when you using watercolor paper. Parts will be sized too much, and some parts will be sized too little. Okay, but I want to make this background pretty soft. Okay, and I've got a special brush. Got a really special brush, my secret brush. It's my toothbrush. So this one here, I just I don't know. You can also pick it up and flick a bit of the water in there to create some speckly sort of effects. Okay, like this. Just sort of shield off some areas that you don't want. And I think that will create some speckled kind of effects in here. Before I forget though, I will put in a bit more coolness down the bottom to create, again, a contrast with the a little bit of the contrast with the warmth on the rest of her. I've not managed to really capture her the color of her clothing or too well in here, unfortunately, but I'll just have to kind of deal with it and accept it as it is. Okay, good. Looking good, looking good. I think that background is okay. Maybe a bit more darkness in some of these spots. A little bit of drama here. A little bit there. You know, while the paper is still wet, it can help to just just create some shapes, some abstract looking shapes. I'm picking up just all the color that's left over on the palette, some verticals or whatever, which may or may not remain after we finish later, once it all dries. Good. Just try to join this onto a body a bit more, like that. So maybe there's like a soft edge there. I think that looks a bit better. Some more purple. I think that background looks probably a little bit too colorful now, but it doesn't matter. I will dull down a little bit as we finish it off. What else was I going to do? Yeah, this little toothbrush, like if you pick it up and you flick some of this, like, oops, that's a bit too much. But what you call it? A bit of this. I put too much water on there. You can flick some water on, and it creates some little speckly effects in areas, like this. Even if it kind of goes onto her hat as well, I'm not so concerned. We can work with that. Okay, just some interest there. You can also pick up a little spray bottle and do the same thing. You know, spray bits here and there. Okay. I try not to do this too much because it creates a bit of a mess on my desk. Okay. Great. So I'm going to call this one done and give it a quick dry, and I'll check the chats for a second, but I think we're pretty much done. Alrighty, taking the paper off. Fantastic. And there we have it, the finished painting. I'm gonna have a quick look at the chats. Oops, stuff all over the place. To see who is around. Pamela says she's looking good. Thank you, Pamela. Who else have we got here? We've got a few more. I'm just gonna bring up the actual window. Solitary. Manisha says, thank you for this live demo. I've learned a lot. Inspired to try my hand at more watercolor portraits. Fantastic. Before I go, again, I'll just have a look through the comments. And I think having, practicing different subjects as well really helps. Like you'll notice over the last couple of weeks, I've done a whole bunch of different portraits from sort of older people. I haven't done any kids yet, but I think we can give that one a try at some stage. That was a suggestion. It gets you more comfortable with especially the different tones and the different sort of levels of softness that you need to have, as well as painting things like lines, wrinkles, that kind of thing as well. Now, what I'm going to do, I'll just bring up, let me just have a look. Okay, so for those of you who are new here, I do have a whole bunch of courses that I run each weekend, so basically like workshops and what have you. But I also have a course pack that I've just released. So I'm going to bring up a window to show you what it looks like. It's a little bit kind of, where is it? Just quickly have to resize the window. For some reason, it sort of comes up at a funny sort of size. But this is basically, if you have a look in the description of this video, whether you're on YouTube, whether you're on Facebook, you'll be able to find the link to it. This is basically a combination of all the courses I've made for nearly 2 years. And it has, I think, over 200 hours of video. I'm not sure the exact amount. It's increased from 200 since then. There's 38 courses. I'm about to add a 39th course on painting different skin tones in watercolor. It's a really good value course because normally each of my courses go for about 20 bucks. I sell them for about 20 bucks, depending on the platform. Some of the platforms that I upload to, they just sell them for their own prices, which means that they can be significantly more or less than this. But for my, basically the courses that I sell through my own website, that's the price. That's what I price them as. And basically, if you sign up for this course, you get access to 38 full length courses. So all the courses I've created so far, it's a once-off purchase, $199, and after next week or whatever, I'll actually keep uploading courses to it. So it is updated over time. So for those of you who haven't seen my courses yet, you're not on Patreon, because I do have a Patreon as well that you can go to. It's also in the link in the description and of the video. You can go through and have a look. But these are some of the courses that are included. These are some of the paintings also that I cover in the course. A lot of it's landscapes and also portraiture as well. So I go through it in a lot more detail. Many hours of content. I also talk about drawings. If you're interested in line and wash drawing and painting, like this scene here on the left, even this one here at the top, that's another thing that I go through. And that was quite popular when I ran a lot of these line and wash classes back then. So if you go through here, you can see what you get. You basically have, that's on beach landscapes. We've got a natural landscapes course. We've got a drawing, pen and ink, Russia themed one. You know, we've got Venice, scenes of Venice in pen and ink. We've got watercolor, landscapes, birds, pretty much everything that you need to learn in watercolors, and you'll be hard pressed to find anyone out there that bundles all their course for this price. So I want to try to get as much value as possible. I mean, it's the first time I've actually launched all my courses on a separate platform like this. So it's like an introductory price. I think things may change later, but for the time being, that's what I'm going to be selling it, for. So definitely check it out if you're interested. You can also get a free trial. So if you go up to the top of the page and click free preview, you can actually go through there and get a bit of see a few of the videos from some of the courses in there if you're interested. So check it out. If you can. You can also check them out on Patreon. So I do have a Patreon page, and sign up for a month and see what you think. Okay, but that's it. That's about it. I'm going to have a look at the chats, and I want to see if there's anything else in here. Deb Collard says this has been great and really learned a lot. Thank you, Deb, and great to have you. Great to have you along. I'm glad that you got something out of it, and hope to see you next week. So let me just have a look who else is here. Marnez says, thank you, Darren. I'm still working on the details. Things are coming together. Yep, take your time, Marnez. I know you have some amazing portraits, and you what I like about your portraits is that you really you really focus in on the details, and you're very patient with that. I think especially with that one of the last ones that you did, it was fantastic. The guy that was wearing the hat, the Mongolian fella. So keep up the great work. Let's have a look as well. Manisha says, I'll go through the info. What a lot of courses. Yeah, there's tons in there. Will keep you busy. Covers pretty much almost every topic that you, every watercolor subject that you can imagine. So I've had really good reviews on it, and that's one of the platforms that I use, and with my ratings for, I think it was early January at the time. So, but I think this goes back, where is it? I think this goes back the last 12 months. So get consistently good ratings on these courses, and I'm sure that they'll help you out. I go through, if you like my teaching style and you want a bit more, and I guess I go through little things, even drawing, mixing colors, mixing different tones, things like that I may not cover in so much detail in these sessions. I actually go through in a lot of detail. I even have a whole class on simplifying reference pictures down. So unless there's any more questions, guys, I'm probably going to just end this stream. I'm just having a look on YouTube, not YouTube, on my other page. Jill says, Margaret, I've got to think about getting out of bed. Really enjoying this though. Unlike Margaret, I've got to think about getting out of bed. Thank you, Jill. It says, stunning. Fantastic. Thank you all for coming along. I will catch you next time, and have a great night.